Good evening, everyone. To all those who are tuning in from their homes, offices, or wherever, thank you for spending your dinner time with us. I want to introduce myself again. I am Gian. I am the content illustration lead in Canva, and we are in charge of all the beautiful elements you would typically see in our templates or user designs. Also, outside of Canva, I am a freelance designer and illustrator, but I do focus on a lot of illustrated type and colorful compositions, working with different brands to tell their stories. So here you can get a glimpse of some of my work over the past years. My work has made it to murals, postcards, brand merchandise, packaging, and more. I would also say I don't have a very specific or particular style, but I do have a special approach to projects that kind of make my work cohesive. But more on that later. I will talk about some of these projects in the talk. Now, earlier, you've heard with Che how a brand can solve problems through illustration. In this session, I want to unpack with you all how you can tell elaborate stories with type and go beyond what is written on a blank canvas. Because if you think about it, statements are written, statements are read. So how else would you say it? But before we dive into it, let's define some key terms you'll hear throughout the talk as a quick background or refresher. So type is the appearance or the style of text on an image. Typography is the technique of arranging and putting together type in a design. Lettering, on the other hand, is the art of drawing letters. And this one would probably be the most familiar, font. It is a set of displayable text characters in a specific style and size. So now that we've gone through that, let's start. One of my biggest inspirations as a creative, Gemma O'Brien once said, when typography is on point, words become images. And I would say that is how you take a viewer on a journey. When that message, that simple statement, becomes a visual spectacle versus a written thing. Now, take a look at these two examples, and in the chat, can you type or send through which of these draws you in more, the left one or the right one? All right, I'm seeing a lot of answers saying it's the right one. Yes, and when you notice the right one, you really just don't read it, but you gloss over the whole composition, its details, its colors, and its forms. You also start thinking about what is this really trying to tell? You know, what does it make me feel? That's what we'll be going over tonight. And in the spirit of storytelling, this talk will be divided into 5 chapters. The setting, characters, plot, theme, and conflict. I'm sure this ring a bell. These are actually 5 elements of a story, which I will tie into creating type projects. So let's get into it. In a story, setting is where and when a narrative takes place. Similarly, when creating a lettering piece, we always think about where the piece will live or exist. Is it created for packaging, advertising, a book cover? It almost always has a job to do, and you should always consider its different functions. You also look at what cultural forces will be in play here. For example, a graffiti-inspired funky lettering might not work for a, let's say, an elegant French jewelry brand. So knowing and considering these will help you create informed decisions about how legible or how conceptual you want to make it. In this project I had with Netflix, these pieces were intended to be sort of like plug and play stickers. They can be used for different merchandise. So it can be a mug, it can be a phone case, it could be a jacket. So knowing this, I made some considerations, such as I wanted to avoid creating a very packed or busy composition. I wanted to focus on a single idea per element, really try to be straightforward even though it is an illustration. Create varying styles as well so that I can support like different merchandise. No, it's not just a repetitive design that can be used as a single element. And using statements that are not heavily branded as well. Even though this project is for Netflix, I did not mention any of their branded content. Netflix, the word Netflix even. The closest one would be the chill word. So yeah, always consider the end user and it will help your projects. Characters. So in a type composition, look at this as every single letter of the words in your canvas. Ask yourself, what does each one look like and how do they all fit together to build the story? Every detail can change the vibe of your composition. So just take a look at these examples for now. Now, can you type in the chat which of these you think gives a more comical and quirky look? Just type in the number. Okay, 5, 1, 2, 4, 3. All right, a lot of differing answers. This actually tells us that even the endings of a character can instantly give a different personality and vibe. So it can be friendly, it can be serious, it can be regal, it can be comical, it can be dramatic, a lot of things. It can also be confident. So just changing that will really help the personality of your characters. Here's an example from my work. This is my 36 Days of Type project. It's an exercise of drawing letters where every character has a different treatment. So I'd like you to think about this as if you're dressing up your letters. In movies, every character has their own style, their own wardrobe. So the directors could give you a glimpse of their personality. So try that approach when building your letters or composition. Ask yourself, are the forms consistent with the personality and message I want to evoke? Now, if you ever need to design with fun characters, these collections from our Elements library are good starting points. Notice how the letters here give off different visual impact and feelings depending on the brief. So have a look at that. Next, the plot is probably the most important element of a story. It's the content, basically. And the same way with building type compositions, what are you trying to say and how do you say it? Do you say it with the punch? Are you more graceful, a little cheeky? So take a look at my work for Rice Rocket here. This is a food packaging I designed that is targeted towards travelers. I was inspired a lot here by movement. So I believe the only way I can communicate the central message of Tara Santayo is by introducing movement in the letter forms themselves. Like look at how they are being pulled into different directions and also being surrounded by different elements which are famous Philippine imagery. And yeah, if you want to start experimenting and exploring how you can build the plot of your piece, you can start with including these collections from our library to your statements or like typography. Theme. So when creating your composition, you should always have a single main idea or point to make. That's the theme. It's the reason you spent hours or minutes creating something that would make viewers feel what you intend them to feel. What should they take away after looking at your piece? So an example I'd like to share is this Be Good piece I created for a Pride t-shirt. I wanted the design here to be really rooted in empathy and compassion for the LGBTQIA+ community. So I created a bold heart-shaped piece. And the intention here is to highlight the heart first from afar before the statement itself. So that's my central theme there, like the heart being good and having empathy. That's how I see being good as. Next, conflict. Arguably, I think this is the best part of a story. Most of the time, this is what sets the climax or turning point of a story. This is where a protagonist finally confronts the antagonist. And in lettering, this is actually called tension. It's a visual push and pull you create to catch a viewer's attention. Oftentimes, this is where you can create something unexpected. Because with tension, you try to go against common visual tendencies or expectations to make your composition dynamic and have that palpable energy. But be careful with this, as sometimes it can make a composition too agitated or too chaotic when you use it too much. So in this project I worked on for a calendar graphic, I wanted to juxtapose organic forms and pixel-like digital shapes to evoke that push and pull between the styles and the shapes itself. So I made some slight tweaks though, rounding the corners of the pixels so I could manage the tension and keep it at just the right amount, making sure the direction is still consistent. And yet, to familiarize yourself more with examples, these collections from our library employ a lot of those tension. And yeah, just to round up what I've already discussed, here are a few of the best examples to look at in terms of how type can tell a story. An example would be the work of Jill Dehan. Notice in these examples how you can just lose yourself in the details of her work. Also, the editorial lettering work of GQ's design director, Kier Novetzky. This is such a good way to open and support the story of an article in a magazine and matching it with like the direction of the photograph, if you look at it. And of course, Cookie Santos, one of the best creatives we have here in Manila. I'm a fan of her work. I just love how there is so much play, humanity, and innocence in her pieces when you look at them. There is so much to see in the world of type, and if you're looking for inspiration, the Type 63 community is a good place to start and see our local talent. Good Type is also really great if you want to start getting serious about creating your own type projects. They have business tips and a bunch of resources. So check them out to see how others are telling their stories through type and lettering. Lastly, I just want to close this session with some words from designer John Dalbello, who said type needs to be legible, perfect, predictable. To a designer, perfection is not the point. The point is to do the job. So always remember why you're creating something and make sure it comes from an honest place. It is the only way you will communicate best, because even though we already work with letters or statements, people will respond to images emotionally and almost not intellectually. Thank you so much, and I hope this talk has been insightful and helpful. If you love this talk, please do follow me on Instagram. It's at Gian Wong. If you hated it, just please follow my dogs on Instagram at Bobby Babito. Thank you, everyone.